Welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. We're looking at the long road to recovery for French industry with the focus more specifically on the car industry on a day when Peugeot, one of the two main makers in this country, laid off 8,000 workers. Now, all of this putting the government on the spot. The kickstarting industry had been a major campaign platform for François Hollande. In fact, when he was elected, he named not an industry minister, but a minister for productive recovery.
We're not going to accept Peugeot's layoff plan at face value. We're going to ask questions, together with the trade unions who will have their own experts, to appraise the situation. And we'll then ask Peugeot to justify the situation as it stands and then to open talks with the unions. The Prime Minister has demanded that they be a model. They examine all the options, including the most loyal.
All right, the call there for the encompassing talks, Stéphane Cossé. He talks about examining all the options, including the most loyal. Bring everyone to the bargaining table. The most loyal, I guess he means not outsourcing. That's what that means. But can it work? Getting everyone around the table, will that keep the Aulnay plant open?
Well, I mean, let's talk and we'll see. I mean, there was a risk in Hollande's decision to have a minister for that, a ministry for that. I mean, he's going to face many other situations like that, and he has not much to propose. He has not much to propose because there is no money left. Either he says, okay, there's going to be more government support. We've seen in the past that yes, there's been some government support, and we've seen that it is to no avail. So the discussion is, how do you resume competitiveness in this country? And this has to be through quick decision and not, as Jean-Marc Ayrault, the Prime Minister, said yesterday or 2 days ago, we need to discuss with everybody. We need to have a social dialogue. There is no rush in this country. We need consensus. No, I mean, we need to act as quickly as possible on competitiveness.
But you don't always need financial help by the government, because many of the jobs at stake are sometimes in companies that are profitable. If you talk, the situation today is that around 45,000 jobs could be lost in 45 companies. That's what we're talking about. But many of those are profitable companies. So what the tools we're looking at are different than just talks. What would be useful is veto power for the workers when outsourcing decisions are made, so that they can shuffle a new plan, an alternate plan. If you look at ArcelorMittal or at Fralib company Unilever in Marseille, the unions had an alternative plan. And what is amazing is that often in those plans, you have environmental constraints that are included in the plans. But today, legally in France, that is not an instrument that is existing. So we call for that. We also call for the fact that the workers, if the owners of the companies want to leave, well, the workers can have preemptive rights to take the company on board. I mean, in Fralib, for instance, in Gemenos, there is a local market. It's profitable. So if the workers want to build a cooperative to rule that, they should be able to do so.
Giving workers more of a stake in the company, Stéphane Cossé?
Again, I mean, there was this idea of, okay, let's look at the 35 hours, famous 35 hours.
35-hour work week.
Yes. Can we, in an industry like that, move out of that? Maybe it's part of the dialogue. What did Jean-Marc Ayrault say 2 days ago? He said, no more of this. We don't want to have a sectoral like that, industry agreement on that. We need a national agreement on that. That's not the way you can move out of
Martine?
This. I mean, I think what Stéphane is saying is very important. There's not a lot of time. There's urgency. It's not just Peugeot we're talking about. Air France is eliminating 5,000 jobs. Sanofi is eliminating more than 2,000 jobs. We don't hear a lot about that because those are white-collar jobs. It's research and development. Yeah, exactly. It's right across the economy. And, there was a lot riding on the social summit on Monday and Tuesday, and it's true, nothing came out of it. The government was being very politically careful, saying, let's talk some more. the government has to get down to business, and France does have a competitiveness problem. It has a trade deficit of 70 billion euros, bigger than ever, and the world is changing. I mean, unfortunately,
and some terrible numbers on industrial output this week, which are down.
Absolutely, in a month when industrial output was up in the UK, up in Germany, and up elsewhere in Europe. It's not with a great sympathy for the workers at Peugeot and any of these workers we're talking about. The solution is not to put more restrictions and make it harder to manage these situations. That is exactly what will drive business out of this country and will shut things down.
The business will not be driven out until there's money to make here, and as long as there's consumption possibilities here, the business will stay here. That the fact that the business will leave,
right.
We've been told that for ages. So what we need now today is to put the jobs where consumption is, and that makes sense. And it may then the deficit in international commerce may not be the more accurate indicator of a healthy economic situation.
What should the French government do? On the France 24 Debate Facebook page, Thundercat wrote, not be inept. Well, okay, that's a little bit facetious on Thundercat's part. But let me ask you, Barry Van Gestel, we know that this time around, state coffers are empty. There won't be any cash for clunkers scheme for people to trade in their old cars for a new one. So what can you do to kickstart the car industry?
What you need to do for the car industry is to use those elements where France is good in, and that is high added value. High added value because you are not living in an isolated area of France, you're living in a big world. And all the manufacturers outside there define the price level for which a vehicle can be sold. And not if we would put all kinds of jobs in the country, and then you would increase buying power, absolutely. But that buying power would go to the cheaper vehicles coming out of the other countries. So you have to be competitive, and then if you are competitive, you can export vehicles, get some foreign money in, because there's a lot of in-country money going out. As we were saying, is the export deficit is enormous. So no matter what you do, whatever industry you're in, you have to be competitive in the world market, not in the local market. If you look at the fact that in France, you have between 45 and 50% loading on the salary of a worker, while in a country like Sweden, it's 27%. In Holland, where I come from, it was close to 30%. So you have to find a way that you bring the cost level down for the manufacturer. And it needs to be fast. You cannot wait for another year. And bear in mind, over the last 10 years, the car industry has been very, very unhealthy.
And by the way,
you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars or euro that went down. Look at the value of the shares of Peugeot, €7. And it was last year, it was like 30 or something. So you need to do something to improve the health of the total industry. And that you cannot do by continuing building vehicles at too high a cost level for the world. You have to reduce those cost levels.
But what's the cost for France to have that family in a tax haven as Switzerland with all of their money, tax evaded?
We're talking about millions of people. We're talking about not talking about 40 people going into Switzerland.
We're talking about millions of euros. Maybe not millions of people.
Martine?
I'm not talking about how the profits are being distributed. I'm talking about the part of the money
about how the profits are distributed.
Martine, let's just pick up on two things a couple of things that Barry said there. First of all, he's giving comparisons with Sweden and with Holland. These are not countries where workers are not paid well. The Swedish economy is booming. I think we should, in France, can take some lessons from Sweden to see how you can get unemployment down and have very high workers. There's a lot to be done. Investment in training and reducing social charges, certainly. That's a key question for this government. And similarly, something else, I think that, we need, talking about focusing on strengths, what Arnaud Montebourg, the industry minister or the ministry for...
it's a bit of a mouthful, his official title.
Translate it? Production,
let's see, what did I
write?
Productive recovery, exactly. What he should be doing, rather than running after every company where there's a factory that's closing, you should be deciding, okay, what are, the 5 or the 10 things that we do really well in France? We're going to put everything onto that. We're going to put all our training, and we're going to, accompany these companies and their subsidiaries and their small and medium enterprises behind them, to China, to Brazil, and around the world, and get exports going. And that way, both shareholders and workers will be better off.
That's an important word that you just said, subsidiaries. Barry Van Gestel, when you close a factory like the one in the northern suburbs of Paris, which they announced today, it's not just the factory itself that's hit.
No, it's all the suppliers that are going there. There's all the subcontractors that will lose jobs as well, and so forth. So it's a loss of production capacity, which there is far too many of in the world. I think there's a 50% overcapacity, if you talk worldwide, about producing cars.
Yes, but in those 3,000 jobs, you have, I think, 1,400 research and development jobs. So if we go back to what you were saying, that looking at what is our strength, I mean, what does that say if we close our research and development jobs?
Stéphane Cosset?
That's exactly the point. What we've been seeing over the last 10 years is that the net margin of companies, which is the money you get to invest, especially to invest not in research and development, is down by 40%. 40%. So the companies do not have enough resources to invest in research and in development. They have to pay taxes. They have to
and dividends.
They have to pay not only dividends. They have to pay
How come
much
you never
higher taxes.
Accept that idea that one of the reasons there is no money to put in R&D is because of the dividends.
Just look on an international table, the OECD, anyone you can tell you, their profit margins are thin in France. That gives very little. That leaves very little money to reinvest, and that's a problem.
This is money before paying dividends. So that money can be distributed to research and development, and this is not done because there is too many taxes, because there are labor costs that are too high, and because there is just not confidence in the future.
That's ideological. I'm sorry, because if you just look at the core numbers, there is no reason why an euro should be more legitimate to go to dividends into a worker.
During the same period, Germany, the same figure in Germany, this is up by 20%. So you can see the gap.
All right, let's pick up on that point. By the way, it's not just France. The Wall Street Journal this Thursday headlining that in 2009, Fiat's 5 biggest Italian assembly plants produced 650,000 cars with 22,000 workers, and then roughly the same amount of cars in Poland, but with only 6,000 workers. Of course, there is one nation and one car maker in particular that, amid all the doom and gloom, is crowing. It's just the other side of the Rhine. We're talking about Volkswagen. 7 years earlier than planned, it's overtaken Toyota and General Motors as the world's top automaker. No looking back, it seems. What, Barry Van Gestel, is Volkswagen doing that here in France we're not doing?
They have been investing in their brands over many years. They have been producing in different parts of the world. They have factories in Spain. They have factories in the US. They have factories in China. They have distributed their vehicles all over the world. And they have been able to create an enormous image for their product. If you look at the amount of money they spent on image creation, that is extremely high. And therefore, they can sell their vehicles at a higher price level than some of the other brands. And let's go back to the profitability again. If the profitability has to do with the difference between what it costs to produce something, excluding dividends, and what it brings. So the amount of money coming in minus the amount of money going out to production. And the difference that it creates, that's where you pay dividend out. But it's not defined as profitability. So they have the profitability, the Volkswagen Group. They have diversified enormously in the world in different brands, and they have invested enormously in their product. And that's what you have to do. They produce relatively expensive vehicles, but they can sell them at a higher price.
And when you look at labor costs, we've been talking about the whole hour across Europe. Yes, France is high, but Germany is not that far off. If you look, 34 euros an hour in France and 30 euros an hour in Germany, much higher than, say, the UK on that chart. So, Martine, maybe the payroll isn't the issue.
The payroll isn't the only issue. That's for sure. I mean, France can absolutely sustain high labor costs because the workforce is incredibly productive, well trained, etc., etc. But at the same time, if you're going to have high labor costs, you want to compete with German level salaries, you've got to have a German level product. You've got to be competitive. You've got to be producing a product that you can sell around the world and getting the profit margins. And clearly, Peugeot isn't doing that. But it's by far, and you talk to anyone, any executive, any economist in this country, it's not just about the level of pay. It's about the restrictions on hiring and firing. It's about the restrictions, the Code de Travail, which is a book 6 inches thick, which can tell you how to run your business and how to treat your employees. It's good in a way, but it's a real it's a real challenge, especially for smaller companies, because you need a lawyer to go through it every time you want to.
Raquel Garrido,
it's not preventing layoffs.
Raquel Garrido, small businesses, the subsidiaries that Barry Van Gestel was describing,
yes,
they're being hurt badly, not just in the car industry.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be a good idea to loosen some of the regulations there are right now?
No, to the contrary, those jobs would be in a better situation today had they not be outsourced in the beginning, because those jobs,
but they were outsourced because of what Martine described.
They were outsourced over the years because of constant pressure on wages.
So it's not because of red tape and high overheads.
No, it's because the profits. Those who want to make profit always want to make more profit, and if it's on the on the back of workers, they do so. But what's sad, and I think, but then again, hopeful in this situation is that there is a big question, which is the environmental transition of production.
All right, but let me just
car industry elsewhere, and there's things to do. And these workers have jobs and things to bring to France.
One simple figure: the amount of money put into research and development is 2% by private companies. Is 2% of GDP in Germany. This is 1% in France.
All right, so a good place to look.
And the dividends. It's not a question of dividends. The dividends in Germany and in France are the same. So before paying dividends, that are the same, French companies have not enough money to put in research and development because
that's where we're going to leave it for now. But we will continue this discussion. Stéphane Cosset, Raquel Garrido, Mark Dean, and Barry Van Gestel, thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay with us. Coming up next, Matthew Warren has all the day's business news right here on France 24.